All right. Number one, what's the best way to bulk on a budget? There's a lot of people on here that don't live a professional bodybuilder lifestyle, don't have the money, maybe the money that they have. What's the best way to bulk on a budget?
Okay, bulking on a budget is about a combination of getting expensive amounts of protein, because that's where the bulk of the cost is in your protein. What I used to do back in the day would go into the grocery store when there was sale on meat, whether it was like, Chateaubriand steaks,
Ooh, fancy.
Well, it's fancy, but it was actually pretty cheap steak.
Okay.
They would call it Chateaubriand, but you could, get sirloin, get it ground because it was better quality than ground beef. And sometimes you'd get it at deals. So you're always looking for the sales. So whether it's chicken breast, whether it's that. Now, is it always going to be the best meat? No, because it's always the least expensive. So it's not going to be the organic Whole Foods.
Chicken.
Right. So the key is to be able to get your carbs, your potatoes, whether it's regular potatoes, sweet potatoes, on your program, getting pasta. Again, I'm gluten-free. I've been gluten-free for going on 10 years. If you have gluten sensitivity, then you can do the gluten-free pasta. So that's going to be usually like a rice pasta or quinoa that they use. If you are not gluten-free and you're okay with it, then using pasta, doing rice, doing potatoes, using those sources. Those aren't the sources that are very expensive. The expensive sources are going to be the meat. So turkey tends to be more expensive than chicken. And then the more expensive the steak, like the filet mignon, beef tenderloins are usually in the $15+ per pound range, all the way up to 30, depending on whether it's grass fed or whatnot. But I would stick to, if you're in college or you're on a budget, try to stick to the leaner cuts of meat. And then talk to the local butcher, get it ground up for you, because you'd be surprised on how much better quality you'll get, especially for the price. Because when you're talking about ground beef also, and you're doing beef a couple times a day at least, especially during a bulking season, what you want to do is you want to be able to get the best bang for the buck. So what I used to do is go to the butcher, and the guys all knew me there. And when I was going to UC Santa Barbara, I would go into the local Vons, and the guys were like, "Oh yeah, we're having this great deal for like $1.99 back in the day." And I would load up the shopping cart,
right?
And then I'd go in there, and they would grind it out for me. And that same cut, that's actually not even as good, would have been like $7.99. And so you'd get them to trim out any of the fat, and then they would grind it up. And again, this isn't going to be really good for burger meat. It's really good for making sure that you mix it up with like an egg white omelet. Or,
okay.
You're going to usually have to mix it up something, because if you get to that really ultra lean meat, there's really nothing to it. It dries out real fast, and it's 96-97% or leaner at that point.
For someone, okay, so those are obviously really good tips.
Or the other thing they can do is that when they get sick of their chicken, they can also get it ground too. That's the other thing I used to do. When you get sick of chicken, get it ground.
Okay. Let me pivot off this from like a 1A question for you. For someone who's pretty new, so they get those sources, how do they structure that properly to get the most out of the bulk on a budget? So how do they structure that diet? Well, for someone who doesn't have a coach.
Well, normally you're always going to be eating every 3 hours.
Yep.
And then what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up eating every 3 hours, sometimes even 2.5, depending on what your metabolism's like. And you're going to be on anywhere from 4 to 8 ounces of protein for the most part, again, depending on body weight, yeah. Depending on division, all that other stuff. And then at the end of the day, what you're doing at that point is then adding in your carbs, and then obviously your cheat meals. And if you have a super fast metabolism, there was times where I was having some of my guys running cheat meals like every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Especially if you have a super fast metabolism and you're burning it up in the gym, I would go, hey, and again, it wouldn't be super dirty. It wouldn't be like, hey, have pizza every night.
Right.
But, getting a burger, getting, a crazy pasta dish, ravioli, lasagna, this and that. The girlfriends were going nuts being the cook, man. And, the wives and the girlfriends of the guys, the big meatheads, it was next level. So yeah, being able to do that and getting the food in, and then not relying too much on shakes. I mean, that was the other thing that I didn't like. To this day, there's supplements, because they're called supplements for a reason, to add in to help supplement. So whether it's doing isolates post-workout, doing a blend protein in between meals, and making sure that you are able to, if it's just not convenient for you to get an actual solid meal in, what you want to do is be able to use the supplements. But if you sit there, and I think anybody who's competed has done this at some point, where they just did like 3 or 4 shakes a day, and you look absolutely like dog shit. And what ends up happening is your body's metabolism shifts with real food. So it's really important that you get the real food in. Everything else helps with recovery, with maybe just time constraints, maybe with digestion because your body's a little heavy. Then you just want to kind of, put back a shake. That's totally fine. Or you get up in the middle of the night to take a piss. It's time to have a shake because you want to help with the recovery because you're getting your essential amino acids at that point. That's another good reason to be able to put that in, because you're not going to want to, wake up and cook a steak in the middle of the night. even though I have had athletes ask me to do that before, and we have done it, but most people don't.
This one's for the weight gaining crew, because I know a lot of people for the solutions will drink a weight gaining shake. Where do they strategically place a weight gainer in their day? So obviously food has the best effect, right? Most anabolic effect, but where does a weight gainer, high quality weight gainer, fall into that in their day?
So normally you're going in with post-workout, again, carbs. You got, most weight gainers don't go super high in fat. Some do, but I would stay away from those. You have your carbs. So that's going to be your post-workout. Then in the morning, whether it's first meal or in between meals, and then a little bit later in the evening time. So between 2 to 3 meals a day, but again, not doing them for every single meal, but to help augment the diet and help supplement with extra calories. And normally the weight gainers are anywhere from 900 to 1500 calories. You don't take all of that in at once, guys. That's not what you do. What you do is you break it up to the macros that you're looking for. And then if you're taking in a third of a 1200 calorie shake and the protein is at 20 grams at that point instead of 50, then you go ahead and throw a scoop of like a protein blend.